Mom, I think it's time you moved out. He said it without looking at me. Jacket half off, shoes still on, chewing the last bite of the toast I made him. The living room lights were warm. The TV was on, a credit card ad, muted. His new wife sat beside him, scrolling on her phone, tapping her nails without pause. She didn't look up. I set the small bag on the table. No one noticed. I had stopped by the market, picked up the sweet green bean pastries he used to love, and in the side pocket of my coat, a folded lottery ticket, still warm from my hand, still smudged with my fingerprint. I just checked the numbers. Winner. Big one. I had come to tell him. That was all. He sighed, like it was exhausting to say, "You're not working anymore, and it's just better for everyone. We need the space. We need to focus on our own life." I nodded. Didn't say a word. I reached for the small bag again, held it close to my chest. Then I turned, quietly, toward the door. He didn't stop me. He didn't ask why I came. He didn't know he had just erased himself from the only gift I had left to give. I didn't cry in the hallway. Not when the door clicked shut behind me. Not when the wind caught the corner of my coat. Not even when the bag in my hands felt like a piece of my old life slipping away. I just walked, one foot in front of the other, down the steps, across the cracked sidewalk, past the flower bed I planted for his wedding. He said he wanted hydrangeas. I made sure they bloomed blue. He doesn't even water them now. I reached the bus stop, sat down, unzipped the side of my coat. The lottery ticket was still there, folded twice. I didn't look at it. I knew the numbers by heart now. 6, 12, 18, 34, 41, 47. I'd checked them 5 times that morning. I had come to tell my son he didn't have to worry anymore. I'd come to give him peace, security, thanks, closure, whatever word you want to use when a mother still feels like she owes her child something, even after everything. But I was too late. He'd already decided I was a burden, not a guest, not family, just something that cost too much. He didn't say it cruelly. That's the part that stayed with me. He said it with logic, with reason, with the cool tone of someone filing a document. "We just need space. You're not working anymore. You've done enough." It sounded like kindness if you didn't listen too closely. But I heard the pause before each sentence. I heard the relief when I didn't argue. The bus ride back to my apartment felt longer than usual. The windows were fogged. The heater kicked in too late. I sat in the back, held the ticket in my lap, and didn't move. A man across from me coughed into his sleeve. Someone argued with the driver near the front, but it all felt far away. I stared at the ink on that ticket. It still felt fake. I didn't know what I'd do with that kind of money. I only knew what I was going to do. Help him. That was the plan. He and his wife had just started trying for a baby. They were stressed, talking about moving to a bigger place. He said work was tight. She said her insurance didn't cover much. And I'd just been let go from my job at the library. Restructuring, they said. I was 64, the youngest in my department. Apparently too old to reshelve books now. I told my son about it 2 days ago. He didn't ask much, just said, "Well, maybe it's time to rest anyway." He smiled when he said it, but it was the kind of smile that closes a door, not opens one. When I got back to my apartment, I took off my shoes slowly. The carpet still had the indentations from the last place I'd moved the coffee table. I hadn't replaced the curtains yet. It wasn't a bad place, just quiet, just small. I made tea, sat by the window, listened to the hum of the fridge and the soft clink of the spoon against the ceramic. I still hadn't told anyone, no friends, no neighbors, not even my sister, just me, and a piece of paper worth more than my entire retirement account. That night, I didn't sleep much. I laid there thinking about all the things I hadn't said, not just about the money, about everything. I hadn't told him how scared I was when I got the termination letter. How ashamed, how humiliated I felt walking out of that building carrying a cardboard box like I was someone who failed. I didn't tell him how the woman who replaced me was 29 and called me ma'am without irony. I didn't tell him how much I'd cut back on groceries. I didn't tell him how I cried the day I had to cancel the dental appointment I'd waited 4 months for. I didn't tell him I thought about moving in with him, not because I wanted to invade his life, but because I missed being needed. I didn't tell him I wasn't trying to help by offering to do laundry or wash the dishes or walk the dog. I was trying to be useful. I was trying to prove I still mattered. And he didn't see that. Or maybe he did, and it made him uncomfortable. Maybe he didn't want to be reminded that one day someone might do the same to him. In the morning, I opened my notebook, not the one for groceries, the other one, the one I used to write in when I still had the habit. I wrote a single line. He didn't even ask why I came. I stared at it for a long time, then wrote another. I don't think he would have cared. I didn't want revenge, not even distance. What I wanted, what I had hoped for, was one moment of recognition, just a second of him saying, "Are you okay, Mom?" Or, "You look tired," or even, "What's that in your hand?" But he didn't ask, and I didn't tell. I tucked the ticket into an envelope, wrote my name on it, not his, just mine. Then I placed it in the drawer beneath my winter socks. I made oatmeal, fed the neighbor's cat through the window like I always do. I opened the window to air out the room, and it didn't feel heavy. It felt like the start of something, not dramatic, not grand, just mine. The first thing I bought was a better kettle, not a new car, not a diamond ring, not a cruise or a television or anything that would show on the outside, just a kettle, ceramic, pale blue. It whistled softly instead of screaming. I ordered it online, didn't even use a coupon. It arrived 3 days later. I sat on the floor and unpacked it like it was sacred. I told no one. That was the first thing I did for myself with the lottery money, and it felt dangerous, not because of the price, but because I didn't ask anyone if it was okay. That same week, I walked past a small travel agency, the kind that shouldn't still exist but somehow does. Flyers in the window, palm trees, smiling couples in hats. And I stopped. I stood there for a long time, looking at the sign that read, "Low season specials, solo travel welcome." Solo. Something about the word made my chest feel hollow and light at the same time. The woman behind the desk waved at me. I didn't wave back, but the next morning, I went inside. Her name was Lila, mid-50s, big earrings, voice like a worn-in sweater. I told her I was thinking of going somewhere, but I didn't know where. She smiled. That's the best kind of traveler. She didn't ask if I had a husband. She didn't ask if I was meeting someone. She said, "Where have you never been but always pictured yourself?" And I said, "Somewhere with water." She nodded. Quiet or crashing? I said, "Quiet, but not flat." She printed a few brochures. Small islands, coastal towns, nothing touristy. I took them home and laid them out on the kitchen table. They didn't feel like brochures. They felt like permission. That evening, I almost called him, not to offer money, just to say hello, just to see if he'd ask how I was doing. But I didn't call because I knew how it would go. He'd answer, distracted, say he was about to head out, ask if I needed something, then rush off the phone. And I didn't want anything. I just wanted to matter. Instead, I called the hotel on the smallest brochure, a place on the coast where the water met cliffs and the rooms had no televisions. They answered on the third ring, a soft voice. I booked a room, 1 bed, 3 nights, under my name. The next day, I got a text from him. No apology, no follow-up, just, "Can you send over your tax documents? Wife's applying for some stuff." Not "Mom," not "How are you?" Just a request, as if I were an assistant, a leftover. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I let it sit there, like an artifact of the person he had decided I was, someone useful until I wasn't. I went to the grocery store, picked out things I'd stopped buying when I moved in with them. Whole milk, real butter, fresh basil. I used to skip those. Too expensive, he said. I bought them all, paid in cash, cooked that night for myself, poured wine, opened the window. No one to ask if I'd burned it again. No one to say, "You always use too much salt." I tasted everything. It was perfect. I started walking again, every morning, just a few blocks. At first, my body felt stiff, ankles aching, breath shallow. But then, rhythm. One morning, I passed a child holding her grandmother's hand. The little girl pointed at something, a bird maybe, and the grandmother leaned down to listen, just listened. I looked away before the ache could crawl up my throat. I opened a notebook, wrote a list, things I will do without asking. Book a trip, order dessert, spend money, sleep in, wear color, say no, stay quiet, leave when I want, exist without apology. 2 nights before the trip, he called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. "Hey, Mom," he said, first time he used the word in weeks. "I heard something kinda weird." "Oh? Did you win something?" Pause. "Someone at the store told me you were at the lottery center." I didn't lie. I was. Silence. "Is that why you've been acting different?" I looked at my kettle, steaming on the stove. "No," I said. "I've been different because you told me I didn't belong in your home. That's not... You didn't ask why I came that night." More silence. "Mom, I didn't mean to hurt you. We just needed space. Things are tight. I understand. I was gonna call you. I was going to explain. You just did." I hung up before he could keep digging. And I cried. Not because I was sad, because I was relieved I didn't need his permission to stop loving him the same anymore. The morning of the trip, I woke before sunrise, packed a small bag, left my phone on the kitchen counter, took a cab, didn't tell anyone where I was going, not out of spite, out of peace. The train ride was long and slow. Trees blurred past. A woman across the aisle offered me a mint. I smiled, took one. When I arrived, the air smelled like salt and citrus. The waves were louder than I'd expected, but the silence inside me, that was the loudest thing of all. The hotel was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't just fill your ears, it settles in your bones. No TV, no elevator music, no receptionist trying too hard. Just wind through the balcony curtains, seagulls in the distance, and the hush of waves licking the shore. The bed was too soft, the tea too strong. It was perfect. I didn't unpack right away, just sat by the window, barefoot, letting the sea air move over my skin like a second chance. For 2 days, I didn't check my phone, didn't scroll, didn't reply. I watched the sky change colors. I walked with no destination. I let strangers pass without smiling, without explaining. I ate alone, slowly. The waiter on the second night said, "No company?" I said, "Not tonight." He nodded like he understood something most people don't. The third morning, I woke to a voicemail. Not from him, from his wife. Her voice was polite, too polite. "Hi, I hope you're doing okay. We were wondering if you're free to talk soon. Some things have come up." She didn't say your house, didn't say his house, just the house. I deleted the message, not out of anger, out of clarity. I was no longer someone to be consulted last. Later that afternoon, I found a bookstore tucked between a bakery and a laundromat. No sign, just the faint smell of pages and sunlight. The woman inside barely looked up. I liked that. I spent 2 hours there, didn't buy anything, just stood in a corner with a poetry book in my hand, reading lines I didn't try to memorize. On my way out, the woman said, "Come back if you get lonely." I said, "I'm not lonely." She nodded. "Exactly." That night, I walked to the edge of the shore, let the water hit my ankles. The ocean didn't ask who I was, didn't care how old I was or why I came alone. It just kept moving, and I stood still, not waiting, just being. When I returned to the hotel, I checked my phone again. Another message, him this time. "Look, we need to talk. I know things were said, but this is important." No mom, no how are you, just need, as always. I didn't reply. Instead, I made a list, not of tasks, of things I'd reclaimed since being here. My own name, whispered back to myself, a cup of tea without rushing, the right to say no, sleep without apology, space that doesn't shrink me, silence that isn't punishment, time, thought, breath. The next morning, I bought a postcard, not to send, just to remind myself I was somewhere else, not just physically, but finally, emotionally. I wrote nothing on it. I left it on the nightstand like a promise. When I returned home 3 days later, the apartment felt lighter, not bigger, not better, just mine. I took a long shower, wore the sweater I used to save for holidays, ate crackers with butter, and called it dinner. At 8:42 p.m., he texted again. "We're thinking of moving. Can you help with some paperwork?" No greeting, no explanation, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't stood in his hallway holding news that could have changed his life, like I didn't exist unless I was useful. I placed the phone face down. I didn't answer. I didn't need to explain anything to anyone anymore, especially not someone who only looked back when he needed something ahead. That night, I took out the ticket again, still folded, still valid, still untouched. I whispered to it, "You're not a gift anymore." Then I put it back in the drawer, closed it, turned out the light, and slept like someone no longer waiting to be claimed. It started with a knock, not a loud one, 3 soft taps on my apartment door, the kind people use when they're not sure they're welcome. I opened it. He was standing there, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense, face too relaxed to be honest. "Hey," he said. Not mom, just hey. I waited. He didn't hug me. He didn't ask to come in. He just stood there, like a teenager caught cheating on a test. "I've been calling." I saw. I thought maybe we could talk. I stepped aside, didn't invite him in, just didn't stop him. He walked in slowly, looked around like the room might judge him. It didn't. I sat, he didn't. I heard from someone at the store, he started, that you won something. I said nothing. He laughed, too loud. Is that true? Still nothing. He scratched the back of his neck. I mean, I wasn't snooping, but people talk, you know how it is. I looked at him, dead center, then said, "Why are you here?" He blinked. "Because I'm your son." No. I let the word hang there, soft, clean. You're here because you're curious or worried, or maybe you want something, but you're not here because you're my son. He stepped back like I'd slapped him. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he mumbled. "Then why did you?" He looked away, and for once, he didn't have an answer. He sat down across from me, finally. The silence between us wasn't angry, it was final. "I didn't know you were coming that night." "I didn't tell you I was coming." "Well, yeah, that's what I mean." He paused, waited for me to fill in the blank. I didn't. He tried again. Things were tight, we were stressed, she was between jobs. Rent, insurance, everything was piling up. And I was one more bill. He didn't argue, didn't deny it. "I didn't mean it like that. You said I was no longer working, that I should leave, that you needed space." His face changed, like the words sounded differently now than when he said them. Or maybe he was just hearing them for the first time. "I thought you'd understand," he said quietly. I did. He looked up, hopeful. "I just don't accept it anymore." We sat there for a while. The air heavy, but still. Like after a storm that didn't flood, just shifted everything a little off-center. "I didn't ask you for money," he said, almost defensively. "No," I replied. "You asked for silence." He flinched. "You asked me to disappear quietly so your life could feel more organized, so your marriage could breathe, so your guilt wouldn't get too loud. That's not fair." "I know." He blinked again. "You said it with kindness. That's what made it worse." He stood up suddenly, started pacing. "I came here to apologize." "No, you didn't." "I wanted to see if you're okay." "No, you didn't." "Then what do you think I came for?" "To find out if I still belong to you." He froze. I stood up too, not to argue, just to level the ground. "You always assumed I would wait, that no matter how you spoke to me, I'd still show up, still cook, still give, still say yes."
I never asked you to do all that.
"I know, you just expected it." He said nothing. "You thought love meant obligation. I thought it meant being seen." I walked to the drawer, took out the envelope, held it in my hand, then put it back. His eyes followed it. What was that? "Nothing you're entitled to anymore." He left 20 minutes later. Didn't slam the door, didn't hug me, didn't even say goodbye. And for the first time in our entire relationship, I didn't feel responsible for how that made him feel. The next day, his wife texted me, just a single sentence. "I'm sorry for how things happened. We were overwhelmed." I didn't respond. I wasn't angry. I just didn't feel like making space for her discomfort. That weekend, I bought a train ticket to a town 2 hours north. No reason, no itinerary, just space. I stayed at a guest house with lavender soap and no locks on the bedroom doors. The woman who ran it asked, "Are you celebrating anything?" And I said, "Yes, but not out loud." When I came back, I opened my closet and removed a box. It held old things, photos, letters, a sweater he gave me once, still had the tag. I donated all of it. Not out of spite, out of release. I no longer needed proof that I'd been loved once. I only needed room to love myself now. Later that week, I sat by the window again, wrote another list. Things I no longer explain. Why I left without a note. Why I didn't say thank you when someone did the bare minimum. Why silence sometimes feels like peace. Why I don't miss what hurt me. Why forgiveness doesn't mean reunion. I haven't blocked him. I haven't cut him off. I've just stopped orbiting him. Let him drift. Let myself stay still. And in that stillness, I've never felt more alive. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't digging. But truth has a way of rising when you've stopped trying to save people from it. It came from a wrong email, an autoforward, a shared cloud account he forgot to unlink when I helped him set up his taxes 3 years ago. I opened my email one morning just to pay a bill, and there it was. Subject line, Mother's Funds, Draft Agreement. Sender, his wife. To, him. I froze. Not from fear, from recognition. Like watching someone pick up a knife they swore they never owned. The message was short. If she transfers before the end of the quarter, the tax burden's lighter. We can say it's temporary if needed. Just need her to think it's in your name for now. No greeting, no concern, no shame. Just strategy. A mother as a resource, a walking checkbook. I read it twice, then once more. Not to understand, I understood perfectly, but to etch it into myself so I would never, ever forget again who I was to them. I didn't delete it. I archived it, printed it, photocopied it, photographed it, backed it up in 2 places. Not for revenge, for reality, so I'd never gaslight myself again, so I'd never say, maybe I'm overreacting. I wasn't. I had just spent too many years confusing patience with denial. I made tea, used the good cup, the one with the tiny blue crack near the rim, the one he told me to throw out. You deserve better, he used to say. He just didn't want to be the one to give it to me. I didn't call, didn't write, didn't confront. I let the truth sit there like a person at the table. It didn't scream, it didn't plead. It just existed, undeniable, unmoved. That afternoon, I walked to the library. Not the one I used to work at. That place didn't deserve my shadow. A new one, quiet, smaller, mostly students and mothers with toddlers. I sat in the back, pulled out a notepad, and I wrote, "You taught me that I was disposable. I only wish I'd learned sooner." Later that night, I got another message from him, this one longer. "Hey, I hope we can talk soon. There's something I want to run by you. It's not a big deal, just some ideas we've been exploring, stuff to make the future smoother for everyone. Let me know when's a good time to chat. Love you." Love you. I laughed, out loud, not because it was funny, because it was hollow, like hearing happy birthday from a stranger at the wrong table. I didn't respond. I didn't even mark it as read. He didn't know yet that I'd seen behind the curtain, that the performance was over, that the lights had come on, and he was still standing there holding a script full of lies. The next morning, I went to the bank, opened a new account, under a name no one but me would ever use again. I moved everything, not out of fear, out of decision, out of choice. Then I opened a safety deposit box, put the printed email inside, next to the ticket. They were no longer weapons. They were markers, proof of rebirth. I stopped answering the phone for a while after that. His number, his wife's, even his old friend who suddenly wanted to check in. The thing about being silent, real silent, is that people start filling in their own story. Let them. I didn't owe anyone a version of me they could sleep better with. That Sunday, I went to a small art gallery downtown, the kind that sells hand-painted cards and watercolors of places no one ever visits. I bought one, a single brushstroke of a wave, no caption, no frame, just movement. When I got home, I pinned it to the wall above my kettle. I looked at it every morning, a reminder of how quiet things still shift and still return. He hasn't come to the apartment since that visit. Maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't, but I do, and that's enough. The silence wasn't a punishment, it was a decision. I had spent years explaining myself to people who weren't listening. Now I said nothing, and suddenly, everyone could hear me. The day after I discovered the email, I started playing a role, not to fool anyone, but to buy time, because I already knew when people underestimate you, they're sloppy. So I let them. Let him text, let her email, let their tone shift from polite to pushy to mildly panicked. I answered just enough. A sure here, a let me check there. Nothing that said no, but nothing that gave them yes. I became air, everywhere, but untouchable. They asked to meet. I said I had doctor's appointments. They asked to call. I said I was sleeping. They asked if I needed anything. I said, thank you for thinking of me. That last one always got them, because guilt, when met with kindness, turns into fear. Meanwhile, I prepared. I hired a lawyer, not flashy, not expensive, but sharp, the kind who reads between the lines and never speaks more than needed. I didn't tell her everything, I just gave her the basics, that I'd been asked to move assets under a false premise, that I had proof, that I didn't want to press charges, just protection. She nodded. Quiet cases are the cleanest, she said, and I smiled. At home, I cleaned, threw out papers I no longer needed, donated clothes that still smelled like old duty, shredded cards with handwriting I once cherished. I kept one thing, a photo, not of him, of me, holding him as a newborn. Because even lies have roots in truth, and I had loved him. That part didn't need erasing, just releasing. Every few days, he'd call, just checking in. Thought I'd stop by, wanted to see if you got the documents I sent. I always responded after a delay. Not too fast, not too late. Long enough to make him wonder if I was slipping or waking up. Let him guess. Let him squirm inside the politeness. Then came the dinner invitation. He called on a Thursday. We're making roast, your favorite, remember? I hesitated, just long enough, then said, I'd like that, because I wanted to look him in the eye again, not for closure, for confirmation. I wore blue, the same color as the ticket, same color as the kettle, same color as the wave I pinned above the stove. He opened the door, smiled too wide. She hugged me too tight. The table was already set. I used to set that table. Every holiday, every birthday, every Sunday he didn't remember to visit. Dinner was fine. Not bad, not warm, just fine. The kind of fine you can tell is covering something raw underneath. They asked about my health, asked if I was keeping busy. She complimented my sweater. He mentioned how crazy taxes are these days. I nodded, smiled, took small bites, waited. Let the tension rise in the spaces between their words. Finally, he said it. "Mom, we've been thinking, with things as they are, it might make sense to simplify. Just a few things in your name we could transfer, temporarily of course, just so it's easier to manage, safer." She chimed in, "Legally, you'd still have access. We'd just help you streamline." I looked at her, then him, took another bite, swallowed slowly, then said, "That makes sense." They both relaxed, visibly. She reached for a folder on the counter. He said, "We drafted something, nothing binding, just a framework." I held up a hand. "I'll take it home. Let my lawyer read it." His face twitched. She blinked. "Your lawyer?" "Yes," I said, "the one who's been advising me." I didn't say more. Let it land. Let it sit. He cleared his throat. "Of course, that's good." She didn't speak again for the rest of the meal. When I left, I thanked them, hugged her, touched his shoulder, walked to the sidewalk, paused, turned back, said, "I raised you to be honest," then walked away, didn't look back. That night, I slept, deep, no dreams, only breath. The next day, I met with my lawyer again, gave her the new documents. She nodded. "These are sloppy." I smiled. I figured. She made a few calls, filed a notice, set up protections, registered the ticket under a trust. My name, my terms. No loopholes, no signatures owed to anyone else. A week passed. He called. Didn't leave a message. I didn't call back. A few days later, he emailed. "Just checking in again. Hope all's well. Let me know if you need anything signed or filed. Happy to help." I forwarded it to my lawyer. She said, "He's nervous." I said, "He should be." That weekend, I went back to the bookstore, bought another card. This one had a single word painted in black ink. Enough. I framed it, set it next to the window where the light hits first. I still don't hate him. I don't think I ever will. But I see him now, clearly. Not as a son, not as a villain. Just a man who thought he could build his life out of borrowed love, and who never thought I'd stop lending it. I waited until Monday. Then I made the call. Not to him, to the bank, to the lawyer, to the office that handles title deeds. 3 short calls. No emotion, no explanations. Just a woman confirming her power was still legally hers. And it was. For now. By Wednesday, I had signatures. A new trust document, a safety clause, an automatic freeze if any attempt was made to move funds without my consent. My lawyer called it a shield. I called it a mirror, the kind you hold up when someone's been lying about what they see. That same day, I walked into a notary office with a folder under my arm. I didn't wear makeup, didn't dress up, just a clean shirt, my old shoes, and the calm of someone who didn't need approval anymore. The notary asked for my ID. I handed it to her. She glanced at the document. "You want this file today?" "Yes." She stamped it. Just like that, my first strike landed, and no one even heard it. That evening, I made dinner, just for me. Salmon, lemon, rice with butter. I sat by the window. A slow song played from the radio, something soft and low and filled with regret. I didn't cry. I didn't toast. I just ate. And I thought, so this is what it feels like to stop begging to be loved correctly. The next morning, he came by. No warning, no text, just a knock. I opened the door. He was holding a brown envelope. "Thought I'd drop this off. You forgot it the other night." He handed it to me like it weighed nothing, but his eyes were scanning, looking past me into the apartment. I didn't move, didn't invite him in. I took the envelope, said thank you, then started to close the door. He blocked it with his foot. "Mom." I paused. "I don't understand what's going on." I smiled, the kind of smile you give to someone who's about to learn they're not in charge anymore. "Nothing's going on." "Then why the lawyer?" "Why not?" "I thought we agreed I'd help with the documents." "No, you thought that." He blinked. I added, "I've already filed everything I needed. You won't be involved." His face changed, just slightly, a flinch behind the eyes. "You don't trust me?" I looked at him, not the way a mother looks at her child, the way a woman looks at a man who's tested her for the last time. "I trust you to do exactly what you've already done." He stepped back, hands in his pockets again, like he wanted to argue, wanted to defend, but didn't know which version of the lie to use anymore. Finally, he said, "I didn't mean to make you feel pushed out. You didn't make me feel anything. You just pushed." Silence. He nodded, half a nod really, then walked away. No hug, no apology, no "I love you." That part of the story was done. That night, I slept with the window open. Rain tapped gently against the sill. I didn't dream about him, didn't replay his words, didn't imagine what might have been. I just slept. And in the morning, I did the most radical thing I could. I made plans for myself. I booked another trip, longer this time, different coast, no return date set. I rented out the apartment for 3 months, packed only one suitcase, and left a single envelope behind, tucked into the back of a drawer, labeled, "In case he ever comes looking." Inside, a note, not bitter, not dramatic, just the truth. "You asked me to make room, so I did, and I filled it with everything I was saving for you." Before I left, I walked by their house one last time. Didn't go in, didn't knock, just stood across the street and looked at the windows I used to wash, the garden I once watered, the home I helped pay for. Now repainted, reseeded, renamed. They never knew what they had, and now they'd never know what they lost. It wasn't a trial, no judge, no gavel, no bailiff shouting for silence. But it felt like court, because truth has weight, and when it lands, it shifts everything in the room. The meeting was his idea. One last sit down, to clear the air, he said. At a neutral place, a lawyer's office, he suggested. I agreed. Not because I needed closure, but because I needed a room with a door I could walk out of and never come back. I wore black, not for mourning, for precision. The woman in the mirror didn't look angry. She looked finished. He was already there when I arrived. Button-down shirt, no tie, hair neat, smile forced. His wife sat beside him, holding a folder so tight her knuckles were white. The lawyer, not mine, his, stood when I entered. "Mrs. Henley," he said politely, "thanks for making time." I nodded once, took the seat across from them. Didn't greet, didn't smile. Just opened my own folder. Clean, labeled, every document marked and tabbed. "We wanted to clarify a few things," his lawyer began. "As you know, there were discussions around asset consolidation, purely to streamline logistics, not to question ownership." I let him finish, didn't interrupt. When he paused, I reached into my folder and pulled out one paper, just one. The email, the first one, the one where they discussed convincing me to transfer everything temporarily. I placed it on the table, pushed it forward. No words, just a receipt of betrayal. His lawyer's eyes scanned it. He shifted in his chair. His voice changed. "Well, that's, I wasn't aware this existed." "Now you are," I said calmly. No shake in my voice, no heat, just a line drawn. He looked at my son, who was no longer pretending to smile, just breathing hard, hands clenched under the table. His wife looked down, didn't speak. "I've already taken legal steps," I continued. "Everything under my name is now protected under a private trust. There are layers you will never reach." His lawyer opened his mouth. I raised one hand. "I'm not here to negotiate." Silence. "I'm here to tell you there is nothing left to discuss." I turned to my son. "And there is nothing left to inherit." That landed. Heavy. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Mom," I met his eyes. And for once, he looked like the child I remembered, but not the one I missed. That boy was long gone. "I know things got complicated," he began. "They didn't," I said. "They got ugly," he tried again. "No," I replied. "They got honest." His wife finally spoke. "It was never about using you," she whispered. "It was," I said, turning to her. "You just told yourselves a better story so you could sleep." She looked away, back down to the folder in her lap. The lawyer cleared his throat again. "Well, if there's nothing else, I think we can—" "I'm not done," I said. He sat back. I pulled out one more document, a notarized letter. It stated clearly that no one was to contact me further regarding assets, property, or financial support, that any attempt to do so would be met with formal legal response, that I revoked all previous permissions, verbal or written. I slid it forward. "Please file this today." He nodded stiffly. I stood, gathered my folder, looked at my son one last time. He was quiet now. No defense, no charm, no smile. Just a man who realized he'd played the wrong game with the wrong woman. "I would have given you everything," I said. He blinked. "If you'd just treated me like a person." Then I walked out. The sun was soft outside. I didn't rush, didn't cry, just stood on the sidewalk and let the breeze pass through me. Light, whole, free. I didn't go home. I went to the station. Train ticket in hand, no destination chosen yet, only direction, away. The woman behind the counter asked, "Round trip?" I shook my head. One way. On the train, I sat by the window. No music, no distractions, just the hum of forward motion. A man across the aisle smiled at me. I nodded, nothing more. For once, I wasn't trying to be anything to anyone. Not a mother, not a victim, not a source. Just me, unattached, unbothered, undeniable. I checked my bag once. Ticket still there. Trust papers, notebook, nothing else. The envelope I'd once hidden in a sock drawer now carried like armor, not to fight, just to walk, on my own terms. They haven't called since, not yet, but I know they will, not for love, for leverage, and they'll find nothing left to hold on to, because I gave it all back to myself. I didn't move into a big house, didn't buy a condo with ocean views or a fancy kitchen island I'd never use. I rented a small cottage 3 towns over. Old bricks, garden half dead, windows that stuck when you tried to open them. But it had a porch, and morning light, and silence that didn't judge. The first thing I unpacked was a kettle, then my notebook, then nothing else for 3 days. I slept on a mattress on the floor, used mismatched plates, ate toast for dinner. I let the space breathe, let it teach me what it wanted to become. There was a woman next door, maybe mid-60s, named Ruth. She didn't ask questions, just brought over basil one afternoon and said, "This survives everything." I smiled and said thank you, didn't explain who I was, didn't say where I came from. She didn't ask. We liked each other immediately for that. The garden took time. So did I. At first, I just cleared debris, dry leaves, rotten roots, trash left by the last tenant. I did it slowly, 1 square foot at a time. I didn't make it beautiful, I made it mine. In town, I found a bookstore cafe, the kind with crooked shelves and soft chairs that swallowed you whole. They needed help, 3 afternoons a week, light work, good tea. I didn't need the money, I needed the rhythm, so I said yes. I started walking again, not to get somewhere, just to feel the way my feet sounded on different streets. I took new routes every time, let the town become unfamiliar and then slowly mine. No one knew me here. That wasn't scary. That was salvation. One morning, I walked past a mirror in a shop window. I didn't recognize myself, not because I'd changed too much, but because for the first time, my reflection wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to look warm or forgiving or motherly. I just was, and that was enough. At night, I cooked for myself, played music, old vinyl from a box the last tenant left behind. I danced barefoot, just a little, just enough. Every so often, I'd get an email from him, never long, never angry, just a line or two. "Hope you're okay. We'd love to visit. She's pregnant." That one stayed unread. I didn't block him. I just stopped replying. Some people think silence is a wound, but silence can be a home. I hung the wave painting in the kitchen, next to the window. When I made tea, I looked at it. Still water, still movement. A reminder, you don't have to crash to change. You can just shift. One afternoon, Ruth and I sat on my porch. No tea, no small talk, just sun and wind. She said, "You're quieter than most." I said, "I used to be loud, for the wrong reasons." She nodded, then said something I never forgot. "Sometimes survival looks like nothing to anyone else, but to you, it's everything." I didn't respond, didn't need to. I went back to the beach once, not to remember anything, just to see what it felt like now that I belonged to no one. The sea was louder, not because it had changed, but because I finally had the quiet inside to hear it. I bought a small paint set at the market, didn't know what I was doing, didn't care. Some nights I sat at the kitchen table painting waves, all kinds, sharp ones, soft ones, ones that curled back instead of forward. I never showed anyone. They weren't for that. One evening, I found the lottery ticket again, tucked in the same envelope, crisp, untouched. I took it outside, sat on the back step, held it in my hand. Then I lit a match and burned it. Not to erase what happened, but to declare what wouldn't happen next. No one would find it. No one would ask. No one would guess how much they almost had and lost. It was mine, and now it was gone. I didn't cry, didn't feel triumphant, just clean, like the last door had finally closed, and I didn't want a new one. Just windows, lots of windows. The next morning, I planted basil, right next to the steps. Ruth smiled when she saw it. "It'll last," she said. I nodded. "So will I." I didn't plan to speak. Not to him. Not to her. Not to the world that watched me vanish in pieces. But something shifted the day a letter arrived from a local paper. Nothing dramatic, just a printed envelope addressed to Miss H. Inside, an invitation, a community series called New Lives. They were looking for women to write about how they started over, how they became someone else, it said. I didn't want to become someone else. I just wanted to become mine. But I wrote back. I sat down with a pen and paper, no plan, no outline, just the hum of the kettle and the whisper of basil in the garden. And I began. What They Don't Tell You About Starting Over, by someone who wasn't supposed to matter. They don't tell you that starting over is quiet, that it doesn't come with fireworks or applause or even a single witness. They don't tell you that it often begins not with courage, but with being forgotten. They don't tell you that the people you raised might never turn around, that the ones you'd bleed for will ask you to leave, kindly, carefully, with smiles on their faces. They don't tell you how easy it is to vanish and how hard it is to stay gone. My name is Margaret Henley. I'm 62. I have no partner, no grandchildren that I claim, no estate worth fighting for. But I have a kettle that sings instead of screams, a garden that blooms because I show up, and a body that no longer flinches when the phone rings. I am not bitter, I am not broken, but I am no longer blind. They told me love means sacrifice, so I gave. Time, money, bones, back, name. Then they told me I was too much, too old, too tired, too hard to keep. So I left, and in leaving, I found what they never taught me, that love without respect is just a leash, that silence can be safety, that worth doesn't come from being needed, it comes from knowing when not to be used. My son tried to fold me into his new life like I was a blanket from childhood, comforting, familiar, easy to pack away. He didn't mean to hurt me, but he didn't mean not to either. He thought I was an inheritance, not a woman. When I left, I didn't scream, I didn't post, I didn't slam doors. I just stopped giving what was never received, and I started buying basil and postcards and shoes that didn't squeak. I burned the lottery ticket, not because I was angry, because I didn't want to be someone's reason to apologize, or come crawling, or remember me too late. I wanted nothing from them, and in that nothing, I found everything. People ask what it feels like to walk away from your child. They don't ask what it feels like to be walked away from, slowly, sweetly, with paper-thin reasons and a calendar full of birthdays forgotten. I still remember the first time he forgot to say Mom. That was the beginning. Not the moment he asked me to leave, but the moment he stopped seeing me as someone real. I am not interested in reconciliation. I am not praying for his return. I am not writing this for sympathy. I am writing it because women like me disappear every day, in kitchens, in quiet apartments, in phone calls where we laugh off being dismissed. We shrink, we make room, we nod and say, I understand, until one day we don't. This is my one day, and I am keeping it. There are no heroes here, no villains, only choices, and I choose myself. Not loudly, but finally. My name is Margaret Henley. I am 62, and I am no longer waiting to be chosen. I have already chosen me.